3 days after my surgery, I saw my husband and sister kiss through my hospital window. I didn't confront them, I set traps. What I did next made them wish they'd never betrayed. The pain from surgery was nothing compared to the pain I felt when I looked down from my hospital window and saw my husband holding hands with my sister, smiling like I never mattered. The morphine was wearing off when I saw them together, and I knew my life as I'd known it was over. Through the glass partition of the hospital cafeteria, 37th floors below my recovery room window, I watched my husband Ethan lean across a small table and kiss my sister Melody on the lips. Not a quick peck. Not a goodbye kiss between in-laws. A slow, intimate kiss that spoke of months, maybe years, of secrets I'd been too trusting to see. My hand shook as I gripped the windowsill. The surgical staples in my abdomen pulled tight, sending sharp pain through my core, but it was nothing compared to the agony tearing through my chest. 3 days ago, I'd gone under the knife to remove a tumor from my liver. Ethan had held my hand in pre-op, whispering that he'd be waiting when I woke up. Melody had flown in from Portland, supposedly to help care for me during recovery. Now I understood why she'd been so eager to volunteer. Below, they separated but their hands remained intertwined across the table. Melody threw her head back and laughed at something he said. The same musical laugh that had charmed everyone since we were children. The same laugh that had stolen my first boyfriend in high school, though she'd claimed it was just a misunderstanding. This was no misunderstanding. I pressed my face against the cold glass, watching as Ethan traced circles on her palm with his thumb. The gesture was so familiar it made me sick. He used to do that to me when we first started dating 12 years ago. When he proposed, when I'd had panic attacks about my mother's death, my reflection stared back at me in the window, hollow-eyed, pale, with greasy hair pulled back in a messy bun. Hospital gowns weren't designed to make anyone feel attractive, but I looked like a ghost of myself. Meanwhile, Melody looked radiant even from this distance. Her auburn hair caught the cafeteria lights, and she wore the navy dress I'd bought her for Christmas last year. The irony wasn't lost on me. A soft knock interrupted my spiral into despair. "Mrs. Rivers? Time for your medication." Before we continue, please write in the comment which country you are watching this video. We love knowing where our global family is tuning in from. And if this is your first time on this channel, please subscribe. It helps support our channel. Enjoy listening. Nurse Patricia entered with a small paper cup of pills and a glass of water. She was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and steady hands who'd been checking on me every few hours since my surgery. "How are you feeling today?" she asked, setting the items on my bedside table. I turned away from the window, forcing my face into a neutral expression. "Better, much better." It was a lie, but not about the surgery. The physical healing was progressing well. It was everything else that felt destroyed. "That's wonderful to hear. Your husband and sister have been so devoted, taking shifts to stay with you. It's beautiful to see family come together during difficult times." My throat tightened. "Yes, beautiful." Patricia checked my vitals while chatting about the weather and the hospital's new garden on the 7th floor. I nodded and made appropriate sounds, but my mind was spinning with questions. How long had this been going on? Did they think I was too stupid to notice? Were they planning to wait until I died from complications to be together openly? The tumor had been benign, thank God. But for 48 hours before the biopsy results came back, we'd all believed I might be dying. I remembered how distraught Ethan had seemed, how he'd barely left my side. Had that been guilt? Or fear that his secret would be exposed? After Patricia left, I sat in the mechanical hospital bed, staring at the ceiling tiles and trying to process the magnitude of their betrayal. Ethan wasn't just my husband, he was my business partner. We built Rivers Marketing Solutions from nothing 5 years ago, working 18-hour days to make it profitable. The company was worth nearly $2 million now. Melody wasn't just my sister, she was my best friend. The person I'd called when I got the cancer scare. The person who'd helped me pick out my wedding dress. The person who'd been maid of honor at my wedding to the man she was now kissing in secret. My phone buzzed with a text from Ethan, "Getting coffee with Melody. Be back soon. Love you. Love you." The casual cruelty of those words sent ice through my veins. I screenshot the message, then opened my phone's camera and took several photos of them through the window. They were still sitting together, though now Melody had moved to Ethan's side of the table. Her hand rested on his thigh. I needed proof. I needed evidence. And most importantly, I needed a plan. Over the next 2 hours, I watched them through the window intermittently, documenting their interactions. They weren't careful. Why would they be? I was supposedly drugged and bedridden 37 floors above them. They held hands openly, shared food from the same plate, and at one point, Ethan pulled her close and whispered something in her ear that made her blush. When they finally returned to my room, they entered separately. Melody came in first, her cheeks flushed from the cold or from guilt. "Hey, sweetheart, how are you feeling?" She sat in the chair next to my bed and took my hand. The same hand that had been holding my husband's 20 minutes earlier. Tired, I said. Where have you been? Just stretching my legs. This place is so stuffy. She squeezed my fingers. Ethan went to make some calls about work stuff. Another lie. I'd watched him checking his personal phone, not his business line. Ethan appeared in the doorway a few minutes later, holding 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Melody, and their fingers brushed during the exchange. Such a small gesture, but loaded with intimacy. Hey, beautiful. He leaned down to kiss my forehead. His lips felt cold against my skin. You look better today. I feel better. I studied his face, searching for signs of deception. He looked tired, with dark circles under his green eyes, but he met my gaze without flinching. Patricia says I might be able to go home tomorrow. That's great news. He settled into the other visitor chair. Melody was just saying she could stay another week to help out. If that's okay with you, Melody added quickly. I know you value your independence. Independence. As if I had any left. That would be wonderful, I said. I don't know what I'd do without both of you. They exchanged a glance so brief I might have missed it if I weren't watching for it. But I was watching now. I was watching everything. The rest of the afternoon passed in a haze of forced normalcy. They took turns sitting with me, brought me magazines I didn't read, and made small talk about Melody's job at a design firm in Portland and Ethan's latest marketing campaign for a luxury hotel chain. All the while, I was analyzing every word, every gesture, every micro-expression. When had they started talking behind my back? When had comfort turned to emotional intimacy? When had emotional intimacy become physical? I thought about our last anniversary dinner 6 months ago. Ethan had seemed distracted, checking his phone repeatedly. I'd assumed it was work stress. We'd been competing for a major account. Now I wondered if he'd been texting my sister while I sat across from him, trying to reconnect with my husband. That night, after visiting hours ended and they'd both gone home to the house Ethan and I shared, I called my lawyer. Benjamin Walsh had handled our business contracts and my will. He was discreet, thorough, and most importantly, available for late-night emergency calls. Barra, is everything all right? I heard about your surgery. I need to discuss some legal matters, I said. Confidentially. Of course. What's going on? I told him everything. About seeing them together, about the lies, about my suspicions regarding the timeline of their affair. Benjamin listened without interruption, occasionally making notes. I need to know my options, I finished. For the divorce, for the business, for everything. Well, you're in a community property state, so typically assets would be split 50-50. But if we can prove adultery and deception, we might be able to argue for a more favorable division, especially regarding the business you built together. What kind of proof do we need? Photos, texts, emails, witness testimony. Phone records can be subpoenaed. Credit card statements showing hotel stays or gifts. The more documentation, the better. I thought about the photos I'd taken through the hospital window. It was a start, but not enough. There's something else, Benjamin continued. If they've been planning this for a while, they might try to hide assets or manipulate the business finances. We should move quickly to protect your interests. How quickly? I can file for a restraining order on the business accounts tomorrow if you want. It would prevent any major financial moves without court approval. My head was spinning. 12 hours ago, my biggest worry had been recovering from surgery. Now I was planning a divorce and asset protection strategy. Let me think about it, I said. I need to gather more evidence first. Be careful, Vera. If they suspect they might accelerate whatever plans they have. After hanging up, I lay in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the hospital at night. Machines beeping, footsteps in the hallway, the distant murmur of conversations at the nurse's station. My body was healing, but my trust in the 2 people I loved most was shattered beyond repair. I needed proof, but more than that, I needed them to face consequences that matched the magnitude of their betrayal. The next morning brought Dr. Chen, my surgeon, with discharge papers and instructions for home care. Ethan and Melody hovered nearby, asking questions about pain medication and follow-up appointments. They played their roles perfectly, the devoted husband and caring sister. Someone will need to help with daily activities for the first week, Dr. Chen explained. No lifting more than 10 pounds, no driving, no strenuous activity. I'll be working from home, Ethan said. And Melody is staying to help. How convenient for them. The ride home was awkward. I sat in the passenger seat while Ethan drove, with Melody in the back seat keeping up a steady stream of chatter about nothing important. She'd rented a car at the airport, she mentioned, in case she needed to run errands while Ethan was working. Or in case they needed separate transportation for their secret meetings. Our house looked exactly the same. A craftsman-style home in a quiet neighborhood with a garden I'd spent years cultivating. But knowing what I knew now, it felt contaminated. How many times had Melody been here when I was traveling for work? How many lies had they told in these rooms? They settled me into the living room with pillows and blankets, fussing over my comfort. Melody made tea while Ethan brought my laptop and phone charger within easy reach. "I should probably check on some client emails," I said. "Are you sure you're up for that?" Ethan frowned. "You just got out of the hospital. Just for a few minutes. I don't want anything urgent to slip through the cracks." He hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, but don't overdo it." Once they left me alone, Ethan to his home office, Melody to the guest room to unpack, I opened my laptop and began documenting everything I could remember. Dates, conversations, strange behaviors, unexplained absences. I created a private email account and sent myself the photos from the hospital window. Then I did something that felt both necessary and nauseating. I installed spyware on our shared computer. The software was designed for parents monitoring their children's internet activity, but it would work just as well for tracking a cheating spouse. It would log keystrokes, take screenshots, and monitor all communication. If they were coordinating their affair digitally, I'd have proof. I also placed a small recording device, ordered online months ago for business meetings but never used, in the living room bookshelf. It was voice-activated and could record for up to 8 hours. Over the next few days, I played the role of recovering patient while gathering intelligence. I pretended to nap while listening to their conversations in other parts of the house. I feigned fatigue to avoid activities that might take me away from my surveillance equipment. The picture that emerged was worse than I'd imagined. Through the spyware, I discovered they'd been communicating through a messaging app that supposedly deleted conversations after 24 hours. But the screenshots captured enough to reveal the scope of their deception. They'd been involved for over a year, starting during a business conference where Melody had happened to be in the same city. The messages were explicit, both intimately and emotionally. They talked about their future together, about how much they loved each other, about how guilty they felt for hurting me but how impossible it was to stay away from each other. Ethan had even looked at apartments in Portland. The recording device captured conversations that made my blood run cold. "She seems suspicious," Melody said one afternoon while they thought I was sleeping upstairs. "You're being paranoid," Ethan replied. "She's on pain medication and still recovering from major surgery. She's not thinking about anything else. I just feel terrible about this timing. What if something had gone wrong with the operation? But it didn't. And we can't keep putting our lives on hold. We've been hiding this for over a year. So, what's the plan? When do we tell her?" A long pause. "After she's fully recovered, maybe in a few weeks. We'll sit down and explain that we fell in love, that it wasn't planned, that we want to handle this as maturely as possible." Maturely. As if there was a mature way to discover your husband and sister had been betraying you for over a year. "What about the business?" Melody asked. "We'll figure it out. Maybe she'll want to buy me out. Or we can sell and split the proceeds." They were already dividing up my life like it was an estate sale. But the worst part came 3 days later, when I overheard them discussing my medical scare. "I was terrified we'd have to confess everything if she died," Ethan said. "The guilt was eating me alive." Me too. But also, part of me wondered if it would be easier. "Melody, I know it's horrible to think, but imagine if we didn't have to hurt her. If we could just be together without destroying her life." "You can't think like that." "I know. I know. But the thought crossed my mind. They'd actually considered that my death would be convenient for their relationship." That night, lying in bed next to my husband while he slept peacefully, I made my decision. A clean divorce wasn't enough. Public humiliation wasn't sufficient. They needed to face consequences that matched the cruelty of their betrayal. I started with the business. Rivers Marketing Solutions had several major clients, including Morrison Hotels, a luxury chain we'd been courting for 2 years. The contract was worth $800,000 annually, and we were scheduled to present our final campaign proposal in 2 weeks. I'd been the primary creative force behind the campaign, but Ethan had been handling client relations. What he didn't know was that I'd been secretly developing a relationship with Rebecca Morrison, the CEO's daughter and marketing director. Rebecca and I had connected over our shared experience of being women in male-dominated industries. She'd confided in me about her struggles with her father's old-fashioned attitudes and her desire to modernize the company's image. I called her from my home office while Ethan and Melody were at the grocery store. "Vera, how are you feeling? Ethan mentioned you had surgery." "Much better, thank you." "Rebecca, I need to discuss something confidential with you about our working relationship." "Of course. What's going on?" I told her about the affair, about my impending divorce, and about my concerns regarding Ethan's ability to maintain professional standards given his personal situation. "I want to complete the Morrison campaign myself," I said. "But I understand if the circumstances make you uncomfortable with our company." Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. "Actually, this explains some things. Ethan seemed distracted during our last few meetings, and there were some inconsistencies in the materials he presented. I can have a complete campaign proposal to you within a week, if you're willing to work with me directly." "Send it over." If it's as good as your previous work, we'll move forward with you exclusively. What about Ethan? Let me worry about that conversation. The next day, I set up a meeting with our other major clients. By the end of the week, I'd secured agreements with 4 of our 5 biggest accounts to work exclusively with me after the divorce. The 5th client, unfortunately, had a personal friendship with Ethan and would likely stay with him. But losing 80% of the business revenue would leave him in a difficult position. Phase 2 involved their personal reputations. Through the spyware, I discovered that they were planning to attend a charity gala together the following weekend. Ethan was supposed to be there for business networking, while Melody was attending as my substitute since I was still recovering. The gala was a major social event in our city, attended by business leaders, politicians, and society figures. It would be the perfect venue for their public humiliation. I contacted the event organizer, Helen Karp, a woman I'd known through various charity committees. "Helen, I have a rather delicate situation I need to discuss with you." I explained about the affair and my concern about them attending the gala together while maintaining the fiction that Melody was there as my substitute. "That's absolutely disgusting," Helen said. "Using charity work to cover their affair. I don't want to cause a scene," I said carefully. "But I thought you should know the real situation." "Leave it to me, dear. I'll handle this discreetly." What Helen considered discreet turned out to be announcing during her welcome speech that she wanted to recognize some very special couples in attendance, including Ethan Rivers and his partner Melody, who are here together while Ethan's wife Farah recovers from surgery at home. The room went silent. Then the whispers started. I watched it all unfold through the live stream on the charity's website, sitting in my living room with a cup of tea and a growing sense of satisfaction. But the real masterstroke was still to come. I'd been saving the nuclear option for last. Melody's career. My sister worked as a senior designer for a prestigious firm in Portland that prided itself on family values and ethical business practices. The company had a strict policy against relationships that could compromise professional judgment, and they took a dim view of employees whose personal conduct reflected poorly on the firm. I've done my research. Melody's supervisor, Catherine Walsh, was a woman who'd built her career on integrity and had little patience for personal drama that affected workplace dynamics. I sent Catherine a carefully worded email explaining the situation and attaching some of the evidence I'd gathered. I framed it as a courtesy notification. Since Melody had been using company time and resources to coordinate her affair, the spyware had revealed numerous personal calls and messages sent during work hours. "I thought you should be aware of the situation," I wrote, "in case it affects her work performance or reflects on your company's reputation." Catherine's response was swift and decisive. Melody was fired within 24 hours. The final phase required patience and careful timing. Ethan and Melody had decided to confess everything the following weekend. I knew this from their recorded conversations and intercepted messages. They'd planned a whole script about how they'd fallen in love despite trying to fight their feelings, how sorry they were for the timing, how they hoped we could all handle this maturely. I had other plans. On Friday afternoon, I called Benjamin Walsh. "I'm ready to move forward with everything we discussed. Are you sure? Once we file, there's no going back." "I'm sure." Saturday morning, while Ethan was at the gym and Melody was getting coffee, I arranged the living room like a stage. I set up my laptop to livestream to a private social media account, positioned cameras for multiple angles, and made sure the recording equipment was functioning properly. I also invited some guests. When Ethan and Melody returned, they found me sitting calmly on the couch with my laptop open. My parents were there, along with Ethan's brother John, and our mutual friends Lisa and Tom. I'd told them all that Ethan and Melody had something important to share with everyone. "What's going on?" Ethan asked, looking confused and slightly panicked. "Please, sit down," I said sweetly. "Both of you. I thought it would be nice to have family and friends here for your big announcement." They exchanged worried glances but took seats on the opposite couch. "Barah, what announcement?" Melody asked. "The one you've been planning to make this weekend. About your relationship." The color drained from both their faces. "I don't know what you mean," Ethan said weakly. I opened my laptop and turned it so everyone could see the screen. It displayed a folder full of photos, screenshots, and audio files. "I've been recovering from surgery for the past 2 weeks," I said, my voice steady and calm. "It's given me a lot of time to think, and to observe, and to document." I clicked on the first photo, the one I'd taken from the hospital window showing them kissing in the cafeteria. My mother gasped. Lisa covered her mouth with her hands. Jake stared at his brother in disgust. "This was taken 3 days after my surgery," I continued. "While I was supposed to be resting and recovering, trusting that my husband and sister were taking care of me." "Vera, please, let us explain," Melody started. "Oh, I think you've explained plenty." I clicked to the next file, a screenshot of one of their explicit messages. "This is from your disappearing message app. Did you know those apps aren't actually secure? You can screenshot anything if you're fast enough." I had hours of evidence. Photos, messages, recorded conversations, financial records showing hotel stays and gifts. I'd even discovered that Ethan had been using our business credit card to pay for some of their dates. 1 year and 3 months, I said, reading from my notes. That's how long this has been going on. 1 year and 3 months of lies, deception, and betrayal. While we were building our business together, Ethan, while you were helping me plan our 5th wedding anniversary party, Melody. We never meant for it to happen this way, Ethan said desperately. We tried to fight it, but you decided your happiness was more important than my well-being, I finished. You decided that lying to me for over a year was preferable to an honest conversation. You decided that using my medical emergency as cover for your affair was acceptable. I played the audio recording of them discussing how my death would be easier for their relationship. The room erupted. My father started shouting at Melody. Lisa was crying. John looked like he wanted to punch his brother. But I wasn't finished. Here's what's going to happen, I said, raising my voice above the chaos. Ethan, you'll find divorce papers waiting for you at your office on Monday morning. I'm keeping the house, 80% of the business assets, and most of our shared accounts. My lawyer has documentation of your adultery and your misuse of company funds. You can't do that, he protested. I can and I will. You'll also find that most of our major clients have chosen to work exclusively with me going forward. Melody was sobbing now. Bara, please, I'm your sister. You were my sister, I corrected. Now you're unemployed.